Okay, we've all had that moment, right? You're in a job interview, the pressure is on, and your mind just goes blank. It's truly one of the most high-stakes conversations you can have, where one little phrase can be the difference between getting an offer and getting a thanks but no thanks. Today, we're going to crack that code. We'll look at what to say, and maybe even more importantly, what you should absolutely avoid. So let's really think about it. What is a job interview? Is it just a friendly chat to see if you vibe? Or is it more like a high-stakes word game where every single thing you say is being put under a microscope? Well, the honest answer is it's kind of both. You can have the most perfect resume, you can have amazing experience, but a few wrong words can just sink the whole ship. So this infographic right here, this is going to be our playbook. It is absolutely packed with some of the most common interview mistakes people make. But we're not just going to read off a list. No, we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to unpack the psychology of why these small little shifts in your language can make such a huge, huge difference. All right, let's kick things off with a total classic, a real pitfall, saying, "I'll do whatever it takes." Now, you might think that sounds super committed and dedicated, but you know what the interviewer often hears? Desperation. A much, much smarter play is to show you're enthusiastic while also, communicating that you have professional boundaries. And here's the fundamental truth behind it. Desperation repels and confidence attracts. See, from the hiring manager's seat, desperation kind of signals that you just want any job, not necessarily this job. When you show that you have boundaries, that you value your skills and your time, it projects this quiet confidence that's actually really compelling. It tells them you know what you're worth. And speaking of knowing your worth, let's talk about money. You definitely want to avoid saying something like salary isn't important. Look, you don't want to seem like you're only in it for the cash, but dismissing the topic completely, it kind of suggests you might not understand your own value in the market. Instead, you can just frame it as being open to a package that's fair and competitive for the role. Just try to see it from their side for a second. Undervaluing yourself is actually a bit of a red flag. It makes them wonder, why don't they seem to value their own skills? Simply acknowledging that fair compensation is part of the deal, that signals you're a serious professional who gets how this works. Ooh, this next one is tricky. Of course you care about work-life balance. We all do. But asking about it so directly can sometimes, unfortunately, be read as how little work can I get away with? The good news is there are much smarter ways to get the answer you're looking for. Besides, if you ask a direct question like that, you're probably just going to get a generic, PR-approved answer anyway. So instead, try asking things like, how does the team usually handle tight deadlines? Or, could you describe the project management style here? The answers to those questions will tell you everything you need to know about the real company culture without ever asking the loaded question. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the huge difference between making a promise and actually providing proof. Take a phrase like, "I'm a quick learner." I mean, literally anyone can say that, right? Which means it proves absolutely nothing. The really powerful move here is to back it up with a story. And this gets us to a core principle of great interviewing. Evidence beats empty promises every single time. So instead of just claiming you learned fast, talk about that one time you had to master a new piece of software for a huge project with a crazy deadline. A real story? It's infinitely more convincing. The old "I'm a perfectionist" answer to the dreaded weakness question. It is such a cliche, and believe me, interviewers have heard it about 1,000,000 times. To them, it can signal that you might get lost in the tiny details and totally miss your deadlines. A much, much stronger answer describes how you make smart calls, balancing high quality with hitting your timelines. Because let's be real professionals get that business is all about trade-offs. Showing that you understand when to polish something until it shines versus when to deliver a great result that's on time, well, that's a sign of true experience and professional maturity. And this one is the close cousin of the perfectionist answer, and it's just as see-through. It's what we call a fake weakness. So instead of trying to disguise a strength as a flaw, just be genuine. Pick a real but, non-critical skill gap you have, and then, and this is the most important part, explain the concrete steps you are actively taking to get better at it. At the end of the day, self-awareness is just way more impressive than fake humility. Admitting you're, say, working on your public speaking skills or getting better at a new software, that shows confidence, it shows a growth mindset, and it shows you're coachable. That is the trifecta they are really looking for. Okay, your next big goal is to prove you're actually engaged with this specific company. Nothing, and I mean nothing, screams "I'm just sending out resumes everywhere" more than admitting you didn't do your homework. You don't have to be a world-renowned expert on the company, but you absolutely have to come prepared with some specifics.
Look at it this way. Your preparation is a direct measurement of your interest level. If you can mention a recent product launch or a news article you read about them, or even a value from their company website, it shows you're not just looking for a job, you're specifically interested in this one, and that matters.
So you get to the end of the interview and they finally ask, "So, do you have any questions for us?" Your answer to this should never, ever be nope. This is your last big chance to really shine. Having zero questions can signal a lack of curiosity, or worse, a lack of serious interest. This is your golden opportunity to interview them right back, asking thoughtful questions like, "What are the team's biggest challenges right now?" or "What does success look like in this role after the first 90 days?" It shows that you're already thinking like a member of the team. You're engaged, you're strategic. It's a total power move. And finally, let's talk about the story you're telling. Your whole interview is a narrative, and you have to frame it positively. Rule number 1, never, ever, ever badmouth a former boss or a former company. Even if your complaints are 100% valid, it just makes you look negative. Always frame your career moves in a positive, forward-looking way. It really is as simple as this. Nobody wants to hire a complainer. Your story should always be about moving towards a great new opportunity, about seeking new challenges, or looking for a role that better fits your long-term goals, not about running away from a bad situation. Also, be really careful how you describe your work style. Saying something like, "I work best alone," can be a huge red flag. To an employer, that sounds like, "I'm not a team player." A much more balanced and effective approach is to show that you're perfectly capable of doing both. The reality is, pretty much every single job today requires at least some level of collaboration. So, yeah, share an example of a project you knocked out of the park independently, but then also talk about a time you were a key player on a really successful team. That demonstrates that you're versatile, and that's a huge plus. So, to wrap this all up, it really just boils down to these 4 key ideas. 1. Project confidence, not desperation. 2. Provide evidence, not empty promises. 3. Show you're genuinely engaged, not apathetic. And 4. Always, always frame your story in a positive light. If you can keep these 4 things in mind, you'll have an incredibly powerful framework for your next interview. And that brings us to one last question, just for you. Of all these little shifts we talked about today, which single one do you think will make the biggest difference for you in your next interview? Just thinking about that and answering it for yourself, well, that's the first step to absolutely nailing it.